Hi guys! Today's video is going to be about the curriculum choices that we made for Logan's 8th and 9th grade year. This was a requested video after my last high school curriculum video, well, my only high school curriculum video. And originally they just asked for 9th grade, but since we started his high school credits in 8th grade to sort of get a jump on things and not to just kind of do useless things, I'm going to go ahead and share those choices as well. So I won't get into everything we did for his 8th grade year, but I will go ahead and share what we did that counted towards his high school credits so that as you're planning later through middle school and then up into high school, you have an idea of what you can start early. Okay, so being able to start your high school credits in 8th grade is an awesome deal, especially if you have a kiddo who is ready for that, I guess. And I don't mean ready as in super mature or whatever, but if you have homeschooled for a while, or even if your kid was in public school like mine was, then they've most likely already repeated a lot of the basics by the time you get to 8th grade. And so by the time you get to 8th grade, there's really not too much of a reason not to start at least some of your high school credits, if not a lot of them. So because Logan had been in public school all the way up until about halfway through 7th grade, he was still missing a few key components. And so we chose not to do all of 8th grade using high school curriculum. What we did do, though, was start on some of the big areas that would knock out either the easiest things for him or the most credit hours or the most subjects. Okay, so for example, in math, he has always struggled in math, honestly, all the way up until probably this past year, I think. 9th grade was probably the first year that he really started to get it. And so for 8th grade, we chose to enroll him in the Pre-Algebra course on teaching textbooks. When we brought him home in 7th grade, we brought him home in December. And I was trying to figure out, because they had started some kind of pre-algebra type thingies in the math course in our county for him, and he was struggling. It was really difficult for him. So we actually dialed back. I made him redo the entire 7th or level 7 of math on teaching textbooks. And that was such a good choice. I was really worried about him being behind. But ultimately, I can tell you right now, if you have any question about pushing your kid ahead or staying back just for a little bit longer, stay back. Because what that did give him was a year of excellent foundation skills and really cementing in those topics and those things that like equations and stuff like that he was just really struggling with. And so we did pre-algebra in 8th grade. That doesn't really count for a high school credit. But I'm just kind of giving you a little background information, I guess. For science in 8th grade, we decided to do basically an intro to chemistry. Chemistry is not a required course for a college prep diploma in our state. The two required courses are physical science and biology. And chemistry, I was not good at chemistry. I was awesome at biology, loved it. Anatomy, physiology, all that stuff, that was my strength. Chemistry was not my strength. And knowing that Logan does not want to go into a field of the sciences, I did not feel that it was completely necessary for us to wait for high school for him to do chemistry because it's not a required graduation class. So we chose instead to do intro to chemistry. And I'll show you a picture of the book we used Some of the stuff is still packed away in the attic. I tried to pull out some of the things that I could, but for the most part, I'm going to just show you pictures of curriculum because that was easier for me. And so this is the book that we used. This was a great book because it worked through each of the elements in the periodic table. It is clearly a biblically based curriculum, but it works through each of the elements in the periodic table, giving information about it, and then tying it into creation and how we would see this in the world. So I call it Intro to Chemistry. For me, it was a nice way for him to kind of work through and get some background knowledge in chemistry and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I wasn't worried about him doing a ton with chemistry because we're not going to pursue anything scientific in his job. So those were the two courses that we did that counted for like 8th grade credit, basically, when he was in 8th grade. We decided to go ahead and knock out his physical education credit. You are required to have 1 year, which is 120 credit hours of PE for your high school transcript. And for us, that was really easy. Logan is a black belt in karate. He's been taking karate since he was in 7th grade. He is a black belt in karate, and so not only does he take classes twice a week, but he also assists with some of the younger students' classes at his karate studio, or he will teach some of those classes if his instructors are out of town, or if something happens, they'll shoot him a text and ask him if he would teach a class. So all I did for that was to make just a timesheet, and it had let's see if I have it. Hold on. Oh, I do. It's right here. Hold on. I'll grab it. Okay, so all I did was just make a time log with the date, what he did, whether it was teaching classes or taking classes, and then how long he did karate for that day. And so that was really helpful. When you're doing electives, it's really time versus like a curriculum per se, okay? At the end of the day, the kids in public school, they don't finish a curriculum typically. Like they never make it through the end of a textbook. So it is 120 credit hours, so 120 hours of actual work or field work or activities or whatever. That constitutes an entire credit. So for something as easy as PE, just log activity hours. Now, of course, let's be legit with it. If he is running or like he's trying to map a run or like log weightlifting time or something like that, I don't count just playing outside as PE, not for high school. For me, it has to be something that is like a structured activity, which is why we picked karate, because that was very easy. It was a learning class as well as a teaching opportunity. He was active the entire time. But when you're doing something like PE, just log your hours. Once you make it to 120 hours, you're done. So that was the first thing that we did as part of his high school credits. The second option that we chose to do the American history, and we did that using the Notgrass curriculum. The reason we chose to use Notgrass was because for American history, and this is also true for world history, but for American history, it offers a history credit, an ELA credit for the literature portion, and then also an elective credit because there's like a whole separate Bible portion each week, and there are quizzes and notes and lessons from like a Bible standpoint throughout history. The pack comes with the textbook. There's a student review book, which has like the questions and study guides and stuff like that in it. There's the test book and quiz book, and then there's also the parent manual. And then you also get all of the individual like reading books that go along with it throughout the text. Then they have certain books that go along with whatever topic they're talking about. Personally, I learned my lesson with Notgrass. The first year, this was our first year using it for 8th grade, and I got a list of all the individual novels and books that went with it. I shopped around, I looked on thrift books, all these other things, and I just knew I was going to get it cheaper than what Notgrass was offering their whole package for. Well, between everything and all the time I spent, I absolutely did not get those books cheaper. So I highly recommend, if you are just going to order it, then just save the money, order the whole package, and then you can always sell it on Facebook Marketplace or whatever. But we chose to do American history for a few reasons. Notgrass curriculum is very involved. It's not bad. It's very involved and it's time consuming, especially their whole credit courses. So this was a whole credit course in the fact of the course is designed to take an entire school year, with all of those components covered for the entire school year. So every lesson or every week he was doing 5 lessons plus a project. One of those lessons being a Bible, memorizing a Bible verse. And then also there's quizzes and tests and stuff like that built in. And the reason we decided to go ahead and knock out American history for his 8th grade year to count as a credit, because his science and his other subjects for that year were a little bit easier. So every year for him, I try to focus on one pretty hard, intense subject, and then I try to do some of the other subjects. I try to back off of those a little bit. 1, he gets really frustrated, but 2, I also try to pick a focus for each year. So that year it was the American history, the ELA, and the Bible component. That worked out really well for us. And so with those things, the physical education and then the American history from Notgrass, we knocked out 4 high school credits in his 8th grade year. So that's PE, that was American history, that was American Lit, because that was the ELA component for Notgrass, and then also Bible. That was the other, we got to do that as an elective. So we were able to knock out 4 whole credits in his 8th grade year. To go with the American Lit, because he needed a writing component to go with the Notgrass for their ELA. Like when you're doing an ELA course, you can't just have like just reading or just writing. You have to have a mix of both. So since Notgrass took out like the literature side of it, I supplemented, and he used the oh, my words are failing me. IEW Finding Narnia was the IEW course that he took, and that's the recommended one for 8th grade. In their pathway, he did Finding Narnia. They, of course, he went through the Narnia books. They do like half of the Narnia series in 1 year, and then they do the other half of the Narnia series in the following year. So we used that for his writing component for 8th grade. All right, so then moving into his official 9th grade year, we chose to continue with teaching textbooks for math, and he took the Algebra 1 course and was very successful at that. So I was really excited. Hopefully he's breaking the generational math curse that my family has, that no one in my family is really good at math, and I'm really hoping he's going to be the one that's like jam up at it. So we did Algebra 1 through teaching textbooks for him. For history, we chose to do the Notgrass Civics and Economics, and I believe they call it Government and Economics. I always grew up in school, it was civics, so I'm going to refer to it that way. Sorry, but here it is. So if you are looking for civics on Notgrass, you're not going to find it. It's called Government. So these are the 2 courses that he did. And the reason we did those together is because those are each half credit courses. So they each take a semester. So 1 semester, 2 semesters, you have a whole year. These ones are a lot simpler. They're a little bit more streamlined. They do have a literature component to them. So you do get kind of that ELA credit. But then they don't have a Bible component. So essentially in both the government and the economics curriculums, you are getting half a credit of government, half a credit of ELA, and then when you pair it with economics, you get half a credit of econ and half a credit of ELA. So that makes 2 whole credits instead of that 3 credits that you would get with your American history one, that Bible portion. There is not a Bible portion of civics and economics. So they do have the books that go with them. So you are getting that literature component, but we chose to do civics and economics last year for him for 9th grade because we decided to go ahead and tackle biology. We used the Apologia Biology curriculum. And I knew just from looking through this curriculum that this was going to be a struggle for him, and it was. Apologia is, again, very much like Notgrass in the fact that they are a very thorough curriculum. They recommend this for 9th to 10th grade. I think, honestly, it's probably geared a little bit more towards 10th graders. Part of our struggle with biology last year was that Logan didn't like it, and so he didn't really put a whole lot of effort into it. So we spent a lot of the first semester fighting through like just laziness and procrastination. And then once he kind of got it in his head that if we didn't pass biology, I was going to make him repeat it. Then we sort of started putting effort into things and we ended the year on a good note. But because that curriculum, the Apologia curriculum, is very intense for biology, there are labs, there are dissection options, there's note-taking, it's note-taking heavy, the study guides are longer, the tests are longer, it requires work, I won't lie to you. We decided, again, to go a little easier in the history area, and that way we could try to put more focus on biology. Because I needed lost my train. Oh, here we go. Because I needed that writing component to go along for his full ELA credit, since Notgrass had already covered the literature side, we just continued with IEW and we chose to do the following Narnia Volume 2. So that he could finish out all of the Narnia books and then also have that grammar / writing component to cover that credit for his ELA credit. So we did that. We also did the Duolingo app last year. We are continuing with that this year. If you watched my 10th grade curriculum choices video, I talked about that a little bit more. That has a lot more information about it, so I'm just going to touch a little bit. We did start the Duolingo app last year, and so that was basically like his Spanish 1. He did 2 to 3 lessons a day, every day that we did school. Those lessons, they give you a grade at the end of each lesson. I had someone ask me, well, how did I grade Spanish since Duolingo doesn't like record grades or anything? That's something you just have to be on top of. So at the end of each lesson, it will give you a grade. And I just have Logan write it down in a notebook. And then every few lessons, there's like there's a review. And so that review becomes his quiz because they pull things from the entire level in that review. Now, I will tell you the one thing I don't like about Duolingo is they reformat frequently. So we've been using it for a year. He was on unit 15. They reformatted and it dropped him back to what they now call unit 7. that threw me for a loop, and I just had to kind of suck it up and deal with it. So now, instead of stressing about what number the unit is, I just make sure that we record those grades under like what topic the unit is, and then we go from there. But after each lesson, it does give you a grade, so that's a very easy thing to keep track of and not have to stress yourself out about creating separate quizzes or anything like that. And then, let's see, what else did we do last year? Oh, we did, he has been, he's gotten into hunting. And so he had to take the hunter safety course online. He had to study for that. Again, that falls under an elective. That falls under credit hours. Okay, so there's not really curriculum for hunter safety. There's not, anything that you can particularly buy online, as far as I know. So what we did was he used a variety of websites, whether the state website or there are a whole bunch of websites with stuff to study for hunter safety tests. We logged all those study hours, as well as practice hours of him either bow shooting, practicing archery, or if him and his dad went out and practiced with their rifles or whatever. We logged all those hours. And then also when he passed the hunter safety test, we printed that out. That was his final exam. So that's his grade essentially for that course. And then we continue to log hours of him actually going hunting. And then if he did get something, cleaning and processing the deer. If you hunt and you guys don't process your own deer, that's fine. Don't log those hours. But I mean, like it took him sometimes, 30, 40 minutes to drag something out of the woods. So all of that counts. So we just logged all those hours just like I did for PE. And when we got to 120, guess what? There's a credit. The final thing we did for credit hours for 9th grade, excuse me, was we created an organic gardening course. If you've watched any of the other videos on our channel, you can see that we have a pretty extensive garden. We try to grow a lot of our own food. And so I decided, since we're logging hours out there anyways, and we're doing all the things, we were going to create a course out of it. Again, this came back to a lot of logging time. However, because I often have my kids complain about why we do things organically, why we're out here weeding by hand, we're not spraying pesticides, we're not spraying insecticides, we're dealing with bugs, stuff like that. I really wanted him to learn the concepts and the information of why I choose to do things that way. He's heard me say, all the health reasons for it, but also wanted him to take some ownership in it. So what I did each week was I pulled from a variety of resources. The Rooted Life by Justin Rose. This is an excellent book to use. Also, morningchores.com, I believe, is another one. There's quite a few really great websites out there as well. We pulled from a variety of places. So every week he had a topic to study or research about, and then he had to carry that out and apply that in our garden. We did composting. We talked about beneficial bugs, harmful insects and ways to deal with insects organically, amending soil, raised beds versus in-ground beds. We expanded our garden last year by probably 200 feet. We weren't actually planning on expanding it that much, but when you have 150 tomato plants, you plant the tomatoes. So that's what we did. So he learned about all of that. And every time he was out helping me in the garden, I logged those hours. And then as far as grades go, he would have to basically learn about a topic, research it, and then just do a quick summary. I didn't grade these papers for grammar or anything like that. I graded them on content only and amount of effort. And so once we got to 120 hours, which for us is not hard because in the summer we're pretty much outside at least half a day, if not more, then voila, we had a credit. And he also understands a lot more when we're out in the garden why I do things the way I do. So I hope this was helpful, and I will list in the comments just a list of everything that we did, and I'll break it up by year so you guys can see that too. Sometimes I know when I lose my train of thought, I tend to ramble, and so I don't want you guys to get too lost. But I hope this was helpful and just gave you an idea of some options for starting your high school credits a little bit early, and then how you can break up your curriculum. So thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon.